Kajian memahami kos sara hidup semakin meningkat. Ini akan menekan golongan 40. Justru hari ini saya ingin mengumumkan di Dewan ini bahawa kerajaan telah meluluskan pelaksanaan gaji minima sebanyak RM1,500.
Starting from May 1st, 2022, the government has set a 25% increase of minimum wage from RM1,200 to RM1,500. This amendment only applies to private sector companies with a minimum of 5 workers and government-linked companies. After discussions from the councils of how this would affect micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, or MSMEs, the minister had decided to put a hold on the policy for MSMEs, as small businesses are still recovering from the effects of COVID-19. According to a statement by Datuk Sri M. Saravanan, the Minister of Human Resources, the exemption for MSMEs may cover a period of about 2 years, giving them a chance to get their operations and financials back on track in the meantime. However, there are debates from multiple sources and analysis on how this might affect the local workforce, employers, and the economy. Before we go into the effects, here's a walk down memory lane. The minimum wage implementation in Malaysia was first enforced in 2013 after the Minimum Wages Order 2012 was introduced. Some of the reasons include unjust income advancements plus the increased cost of living. The amount was set based on recommendations from the National Wages Consultative Council, followed by consultations from relevant stakeholders throughout the country. We started with a minimum wage of RM900 per month in West Malaysia and RM800 per month in East Malaysia. The increment rate has been consistently rising by RM100 almost every 2 years since. The last increase was from RM1,100 to RM1,200 in 2020. That's about a 9% difference. The increment for 2022 will be a 25% hike, and we can't deny that's a very huge jump. As with many debatable situations, there are several pros and cons with increasing the minimum wage to RM1,500. Pro number 1, better quality of life. The 25% jump in minimum wage would provide more balanced income for Malaysians, as there has been a constant hike in living wages, especially since the pandemic. For instance, the rising prices of food like vegetables, seafoods, and meats, as well as goods and services. Based on government data released in January 2022, the Local Consumer Price Index, or CPI, rose 3.2% in December 2021 compared to 2020 due to an increased price on food and fuel. The pandemic has caused disruptions in production processes of food supply chains, thus leading to a tremendous change of price. This is according to YB Datuk Sri Alexander Natalinggi. So with an increased minimum wage, employees will have the opportunity to keep up with the standards of the current living wage, which will lead to pro number 2, better economic growth. According to an analysis by the Star in February 2022, the higher minimum wage could potentially give a positive impact to the economy, as a rise of income promotes higher consumptions. This shows a win-win situation between workers in Malaysia and the government, as it could be one of the steps to rebuild the economy's growth. While many Malaysians are supporting the wage increment, there are still downsides for local stakeholders, especially employers. Although businesses are given a chance to recover and rebuild for now, not all employers would be able to meet the minimum of an additional RM300 every month to each underpaid employee. Plus, employers might have to offer increments to other existing employees who may already be earning above the minimum wage but expect a remuneration boost due to seniority, rank, and experience. This could possibly lead to a higher price of goods and services as a way to make up for the company's profit margin. The alternative would be to allow this additional expense to eat into the company's profits, if revenue is high enough to begin with. In the worst case scenario, some companies might need to downsize to reduce labor costs, which will then increase the unemployment rate in Malaysia. And that rate, it is still currently in recovery and has not gone back to the pre-pandemic figure. Some also opine that the jump in minimum wage would only worsen the economy. The Malaysian Employers Federation, or MEF, claimed that RM1,500 minimum wage will only benefit foreign workers. This is because the annual remittance to their countries of origin will increase, as the foreign workers will be sending more money back home instead of spending the earnings in Malaysia. There are some appeals and suggestions from multiple sources on what the government can do for the future of Malaysian labour. Here are 2 worth mentioning. Number 1. The Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, or FMM, suggested that instead of an immediate increment, the government should take a gradual approach so that the sudden hike of business costs does not derail the business and economy recovery process. Number 2. The MEF proposed to rebrand 3D jobs, aka dirty, dangerous and difficult, and for the government to provide necessary support such as incentives for automation and mechanization. This is to ensure that the entire job market is not jeopardized by the implementation of future minimum wage rates. Having a higher minimum wage is indeed important. After all, everyone has the right to earn a fair wage. The national wage objectives have big ambitions. However, the decision to increase the minimum wage and the implementation of it thereafter is not that straightforward. There are many effects and factors to take into consideration as they will greatly impact the livelihoods of people, the survivability of businesses, and the recovery of the economy.
So a quick update guys, on April 24th, the Prime Minister has assured that the increment of minimum wage will still be implemented on May 1st, even after numerous suggestions and appeals to it. So let us know what you think about this increment in the comments down below.